views. Yeah, no, I'm excited to do this. Thank you so much, man.
How's my audio? Pretty
Your
good.
Your audio sounds good, dude. Audio sounds good.
Dude, I'm always I just want solid audio. If I can get good audio, I think everything else is good. So
no, your stuff sounds good. I appreciate you letting me jump on
good
this
morning.
quick. Good morning to you too, dude. I appreciate you letting me jump on this quick. I listened to you and Gabe, and I was just like, oh shit. And I'm like, is this old? Is this like just today? And I was like, fuck. Like, I was like looking at, I scrolled through Instagram real quick. I'm like, is this made noise yet? Is this like making noise? And like, I think it's really subtle the way even the title you gave it was very subtle. It wasn't like, have you guys had a bunch of good feedback from that sense?
Yeah, I mean, so what you're referring to for people who don't have context is that we announced our reaffiliation with CrossFit here at NCFit. And I mean, this is a great conversation to have because you're right. There's nothing on social media. And that's intentional. And I still don't know if it's the right way to go, but we could talk about the why behind that right now. The way that we announced this was we sent an email. It's been a long time coming, by the way. We could talk about how we got here, but we sent an email yesterday to all of our like our B2B list and our B2C list, our brick and mortar members, our app members, and our like collective gyms that utilize our service. We did that, and then we released a podcast on the Effort Over Everything channel with Gabe and I. Aside from that, we have not done anything publicly. And the reason why, and I'm going back and forth on this, I don't know if this is the right way to do it, is because I don't want people to look at this like we're trying to market it or like promote that we're like, I don't know. I don't want to come off. I want to come off what it is. For me, it's like, I want to do this for myself. I want to do this because it felt right to me. And so I don't want to go out there and put something online through Instagram that doesn't allow that to come across. Sure. And in long form podcasts, it's different, but in short form, I didn't want anybody to get the wrong impression. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that was my emotion. So until I feel better about it, then I'll put it on social media, you know?
So I, before I even sent you a text yesterday, when I heard all this, I was like, all right, I'm going to do a reaction video to this. Cause I've got thoughts, like what I think is going through Jason's head. I was like, fuck it. I'll just call Jay, see if he can get on this thing super quick. But so I want to see if I have any accuracy here. The way, and historically, for everyone knows, you sent out the de-affiliation communication publicly through social media and probably all those other channels you just mentioned when the George Floyd Glassman July 2020 thing went down, right? There was a lot of pressure from every big name associated with CrossFit to do something about it. And for everyone listening to this at the gym owner level, you think about how big of a deal it is with your members with something small. You change a class and you get 20 upset emails from that. You got to imagine, again, for someone like Jace, I mean, CrossFit makes a statement that whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, and everyone's now, especially at that time of the world, is like, what's your take on it, right? They wanted every brand to have a take on everything that happened during that time. And you guys made a move. Now, that move, we'd probably agree, because we discussed this on a podcast when you announced your licensing model. That move was also preemptive. Like, you guys were slowly walking down the way of separating from the brand of CrossFit and letting NCFit be. And now it's like, now you're making the announcement that we've decided to reaffiliate with CrossFit, but we're not going the loud social media route that we kind of had to go because of the George Floyd and the Glassman tweet and the whole deal. And because I honestly, it'd be like, let's say you used to use QuickBooks and then you signed on with TurboTax. Would you let the customers fucking know? Would you make a social media post about it? No, you're literally just going to turn around and pay an affiliation fee to be affiliated. You could be affiliated with the USAW. You could be affiliated with 1,000 different organizations that really have nothing to do with anything that's going to happen customer facing. That was the first thing that came to my brain. Like, of course, he doesn't need to make this a big deal because honestly, it doesn't really fucking matter. The second thing was, and I want you to let me know if I'm on par here. It appeared to me in my conversations with MDV on the podcast and you you guys were really kind of working on maybe a more unique belief in fitness. When I came down and visited, I said, hey, if I walked around with a microphone, Jason, I asked people, I said, you go to NCFit, what's the workout you do here? And I held a microphone to their mouth. They'd all say CrossFit. They'd all call it CrossFit.
That's
and
right.
I think, was there a moment in time where, NCFit was maybe working on something more unique in their own unique belief in fitness? And then you look around and you're like, why try to recreate a wheel? We fucking love CrossFit. We're doing CrossFit. We don't need this or that. And not that NCX or any of these other programs were bad or good or successful or not. It's like, why don't we just stick with what we do well, which is executing someone else's awesome fitness methodology in our unique styles? Like, we have different flavors of this thing, but we do CrossFit. Why not align with that brand now that the PR nightmare is out of the office, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you were a part of this because you came and we sat down in Mountain View and you're talking about a unique belief in fitness. And I'm sitting there and I'm describing my perspective on it. Like, we don't do single modality days. We don't do this. But at the end of the day, most people, most of the time who are in our gym would say they do CrossFit. And, it goes back. Look, this goes back really deep, obviously. I have bred blood. I have given my soul to CrossFit. And over the years, I just didn't align with leadership's direction. And as running a business, it was very difficult to go right, left, this, that. As a business owner, that my family and other families depend on this, it was very difficult when I couldn't, I didn't know what reaction was going to come out of a brand that I was associated with. We no longer have to worry about that, right? Dawn, who's the new CEO, has been a member of our gym for 8 years. We don't need to worry about a crazy right, crazy left. So that was one big piece, right? But the bigger piece is, and the reason why we haven't shared on social, and I just haven't felt right about it, is like, for a couple of years now since de-affiliating, we de-affiliated not because necessarily just because of the George Floyd situation. There's a bunch of stuff that led up to that, but it's like, I just haven't felt right about the fact that in our gyms, most people, most of the time would call it CrossFit. And we were not able to call it that because we didn't pay a license fee. That's really, in the grand scheme of things, is a nominal amount. That really is, it's not the money. For anybody who thinks it's the money, it's not the money. It's the fact that when you're associated, you could also be guilty by association. But I don't think we have to worry about that anymore. And it just felt right to me to give credit where credit's due and to allow us to be able to use the word CrossFit to describe our programs if we want to, and to really go out there and narrow down our focus of where we want to go. This goes for our partner gyms or for us. We want to be the tip of the spear, the #1 CrossFit gym in the world. And we're not going to try and, be a functional fitness or whatever. We're just going to call it duck a duck. We're going to be CrossFit. And our goal is to be the #1, to represent just something really magical. And by affiliating, we could utilize that mark. Is our brand going to change? No. Is our mission, core values? No. None of that's going to change. The only thing that's going to change is if someone says, hey, do you guys do CrossFit here? We can say yes. Or we could use it for SEO or different types of things. And more than anything, it makes me feel like I'm not dirty by because I still feel like this is the best form of fitness. I've been doing this for 20 years. So it makes me feel better personally.
Yeah. So now, now you're like, okay, I spend the money. Sure. My name is associated with it, but now I feel better. I've been using this product that they have, this this methodology. And now I feel just legit about doing it. I'm back in the thing. And the one thing I text you, I said, the one thing I want everyone to get over, the best operators and owners I know and entrepreneurs change their mind without thinking twice about it. They don't worry about what the backlash is. Right. And ultimately, you had to change your mind about CrossFit when you de-affiliated. Fast forward 3 years, changing your mind again. And I promise, not that it's going to be based on CrossFit, you've probably changed your mind on 1,000 different things within the organization of NCFit. And I think people are like, oh, he's coming back. Like, yeah, so what? Like, literally, I put on a black shirt earlier and then I came down, I changed, I put on a white shirt. Like, who gives a fuck how many, like, what you change on this? Changing your mind in business is something I think of a higher level entrepreneur, someone who's not afraid of what others in the comments or whatever are going to say. Someone's like, yeah, I changed my mind. I thought one thing. Sean Pastuch, I think, does this better. That he talks about this very well. He's like, yeah, we used to do it this way. And I found a better way to do it that's antagonist, but it's actually a better way. So I was wrong then. I think I'm right now. Are you with me or not?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, and I don't think, I think for us, it's like, yeah, I think for me personally, I've always aligned with the methodology of CrossFit. I've always aligned with the community there was just certain things I couldn't align with from a leadership perspective. And that was really difficult, super difficult. And there's so much background that people aren't aware of, but that's all in the past. And I think the future looks bright for CrossFit. I think that from a leadership perspective, one of the things that I'm really excited about is the fact that they want to streamline the affiliates. They want to raise the bar of the affiliates. And I think that's really important for the trajectory and the long-term success of CrossFit. Meaning, CrossFit blew up, let's just say, however many years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And there was a low barrier to entry, a lot of gyms open. And frankly, some of those gyms probably shouldn't be there today, right? They need to pivot. If they're just barely hanging on, they're not doing good for the overall ecosystem. If someone goes in for a CrossFit experience and has a poor one, we need to, as an industry, raise the bar across everything. And I think that's ultimately what CrossFit wants to do right now on the affiliate side, which makes me really excited for the future.
How much, when you decided to make multiple NCFits and you branded away from CrossFit, how much of, like, again, the beginning kind of, not resentment, but the beginning of distance between you and CrossFit when Greg was at the helm, how much of that came, because I'm from what I've heard in other podcasts and things like that, and comments you've had and we've discussed, he wasn't super fond of you going the way of NCFit and just doing NCFit. And even though you were a CrossFit affiliate still back then, was that kind of the beginning of the Wedge? And then, because I'll be honest, I didn't even know Greg had a Twitter. Like, I didn't know the dude tweeted on the regular basis. It just so happened that maybe the one time he tweeted was just it was the tweet heard around the fucking world in summer of 2020. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so how much did Greg's dissatisfaction with your brand establishment of NCFit be that initial thing? Whereas Don found you guys probably. Did he find you as NCFit or NorCal?
No, he found us originally as NorCal CrossFit, I think. Yeah, he must have, because it was years and years ago.
But he's been in it now. He's in. Yeah. If you ask him what gym he goes to, I go to NCFit, right? He, like, obviously understands the business side of what you did and didn't see it as a personal backlash.
Yeah, I mean, when he became CEO, obviously some things changed for me. A lot of things changed, actually. That was like 6-7 months ago. In regards to Greg, I think the Wedge was built. I don't even want to talk about the past is the past, but I wish there was a lot of things that have occurred in the past that if you look back on them, like they got us where we're at today. But I wish that a lot of things had not occurred the way they occurred. It doesn't sit right with me, certain things, but we made the best decision we could at the time with the information we had to support the people that we thought needed supported. But that still doesn't make me feel great about all these things in the past, but you learn from them. And, with Don, coming on as CEO, I didn't necessarily feel this way with Eric as a CEO, which is why I did not reaffiliate with the brand, because I didn't know what direction he was going to go. I do feel good about the direction that Don wants to go. So we're going to align with them again. And more than that, it's not even necessarily just leadership. It is definitely that, but it's just like, I'm at a place personally, like where I'm at, where I'm ready to let go of any of the past and like be about the future. And my past is so like intertwined with CrossFit that I want to support it. And I want to be a part of the growth. I want to be a part of getting this in more people's hands, right? And not a detractor from that, if that makes sense.
Sure. For Don, I don't know much about it. When Eric first stepped in, I did a bunch of my research and listened to podcasts with Eric. And then, he stepped down and it kind of seemed like there was a big C-suite. It was like musical chairs with the C-suite of CrossFit for a while. Every like 3 weeks you heard of someone stepping out in, and I was like, all right, let me just wait for this to like settle down. And then Don got announced, and I didn't dig into it at all because I thought maybe that was still traumatic. But I want to talk to you. So how much conversation did you know Don was going to get pegged for this before he officially got pegged for it? Did you guys have conversations? For me or anyone listening who doesn't know Don from anyone, kind of bring me into like, okay, is he just a guy with money and good leadership and good business background and he's in the right place at the right time? Like, how does he fall into this?
Well, I mean, I feel like with anything, right? Especially like if you listen to that podcast, how we made it or how you built this or whatever it is, he always asks at the end, like, how much of it is luck? How much of it is, obviously Don's here in the Bay Area. So am I. And in the Bay Area, there's some, part of the board of directors for the Berkshire Group and ownership of CrossFit. So that's obviously there's a piece of that, right? But I mean, obviously, I think he's earned the position. He went from, his background is really unique because he came in, he had a military background prior. Then he goes to Stanford, gets his MBA, which is no short of a phenomenal school, not only for connections, but obviously the education, then starts leading companies, works at different companies, leads a company, goes through an acquisition phase. And then, one of the things I think it's important is like, he's not taking this job for the money at all. I mean, if I would be under the impression that Don's at a position in his life where he probably doesn't have to work. And, that makes it really powerful when someone who doesn't really have to work takes on a really difficult business. The way I described it when I was originally talking to him is that whoever took over as CEO of CrossFit has really taken over. I compared it not so much to like the closest I could find is like an organization similar to a church, meaning people have belonged to this and it's changed their life. And so anything that you do as the CEO, any change you want to make, they feel like it's not just a part of like a company change, but a personal change, because CrossFit's changed their life in so many ways. Just the way, like, if you have certain beliefs in different things and you follow that duration, it's changed your life. And so when someone makes a business change that they think is in the best interest for the future of the business, these people look at it as it's a change to them personally, and it becomes a highly personal, reactive thing. So, I think he knew what he was taking on before he got it. And for him to take that on without having to think about it from a money perspective is pretty powerful.
No, 100%. And I want to echo what Jason said there. And it's something that's really good for all the gym owners from a psychology perspective. When we make changes, schedule, pricing, name change, location change, whatever, programming change, and people act violently. And I joke about this and I talk with gym owners, and it's like, all right, Sally, yeah, I get it. I changed this 8 p.m. class to 7:30 and you're canceled. Like, reacting is kind of silly. But when people have had life-changing experiences with something, or it is their, again, go to Maslow's hierarchy, right? It is their like source of socialization.
That's right.
And you make it, I mean, they covet that so closely. Any change is a fear for them of, this is all going to go away. Like, right. I've only known this. This is what I know. This is what I covet. I attribute my results to it, my friends circle to it, my everything. It's a pillar of my schedule. I come here 4 days a week, and now you're adjusting, changing the name. And like, yeah, but the name doesn't change anything, Sally. In class, it's going to be the same thing. We got to understand at a psychological level as coaches, we got to be psychiatrists for a second. It's just like mom and dad getting divorced. Dad's living down the street. We're just not living together. You're going to still see him at every baseball game. It's like, you're just breaking the fabric of the family, of like what I've known. And it looks much more like explaining divorce to a child, but you're doing it to a grown ass woman in her, her mid 40s, as to why the color scheme and the name of the building, your company changed, even though nothing internally changed. It's very similar.
It is. And so, I think that from obviously we're in an industry that's service-based. Our job is to make strong fans of our business, right? We want people to just go out there and scream from the hilltops about how awesome our experience is and whatnot. But as part of that, right, the deeper they feel connected, the more they also feel like anything you do, it impacts them. So like you said, you change a class time, whatever, it's deeply emotional for people. And we have to recognize that. Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, maybe this isn't the best example, but right now we're going through some challenges here at the company because our classes are tremendously impacted, in particular at our Mountain View gym. And when I say like impacted, every day, wait list, every single day, the problem we're having is that we have 18 people on one class. So we have 100 classes a week at Mountain View. And the issue we're having is that people reserve a class and then they'll cancel and they'll still be open spots. And so we're having this big issue. And so we have a $5 cancellation fee. But for some people, they just don't care about it. Yes. So we sat down and we talked about how are we going to solve the problem? The problem is we're hitting class capacity, but then we're also there's a number of different levers we could pull, right? Add more classes, maybe. I mean, it's tough. Increase class capacity, maybe, but that's tough too because we want a good experience. Increase the window that you have to cancel your class in, because right now ours is 2 hours. So maybe you increase that. But ultimately, what it came down to is that it's probably the best option for us is to increase the fee from $5 to $20, because that'll put more skin in the game. But it's tough because we don't want our members to think we're trying to generate revenue, but we also need people to cancel in time, because otherwise you're losing out on a spot for someone that could be taking that class. So we're going to be putting out communication on that. And we need to realize that, like any communication, has to be done the right way, because it can be looked at negatively because of how connected they are to the gym.
And for anyone who is an NCFit client that's listening to this, I got to tell you, 2 hours is beyond generous. Like the industry average is 12. You have 12. If you cancel it within 12 hours of your class, you're charged the no-show late cancellation fee. We did 8 at Urban, but giving them a 2 hour, like, up to 2 hours to this, so it's up to 2 hours before class. You can move it around and cancel without fee.
Yeah. I mean, so again, we're trying to, this is like not to go off on a tangent from the affiliation conversation,
this
but
is good though.
We just had a conversation about this with our team, and we're saying, okay, our problem is at our 6 o'clock class, or this class, or this class, or this class, they're all impacted. But you'll show up. We had one class where it was full at 18. We had 14 people cancel their reservation within like the 2 hour window right before. And so it really skews the whole thing. And our intention is not trying to like make money off cancellation fees. We're just trying to think to ourselves, okay, what is the problem and what levers can we pull to solve it? And ultimately, I think where we're at right now is we're going to first try and increase the fee and see if that helps. And then the next step would probably be to increase the duration that they have to cancel ahead of time.
Yeah. And just to go off this, that's exact. I mean, I love that strategy. Same thing I'd recommend. It has to be a fee that's high enough they feel a pain to it. Otherwise, like you said, they don't give a shit. And what you're going to probably find, like some people still won't give a shit at 20. I had guys and they were long-term members. We joked and they didn't care because they had that kind of money. Their late cancellation and no-show fees were greater than their monthly EFT. Yep. And they just don't give a shit. And it was just like, okay, so there's that. And then it's also one of those things where as every customer, like, it's like, again, your class is an event. There's a concert going on. It's popular. There's only so many seats. Well, when people want to go see a show, they make sure they get their tickets and they don't come to it. If they can't make that because they know there's another show in 3 more hours or later that day, right? It's that kind of a thought process. And you probably find, and for the gym owners listening, the morning classes are the ones that get fucked the worst because your coach goes to bed at 9 p.m. and he's like, oh, I've got 24 people in class. He wakes up and opens the gym or whatever, and it's now down to 16. And he arranged everywhere. That's why I do recommend potentially having longer windows of cancellation to cover you overnight. And then during the day, maybe shorter windows of cancellation because I am going to come to the 5, but my kid got sick at school and I had to go pick him up. Now I can't go to the 5. Like that's a little bit realistic.
And the heart of it is not like, we're not trying to be jerks about this. Like the heart is that we just want to make sure that if you reserve a class, you show up. Like, and we know things come up, right? And of course there's emergencies and different things. Of course, like, dude, we refund fees all the time, right? Because that's not the heart of what we're trying to do, So,
it's tough when you have the unlimited membership because the unlimited, they're just like, I just register for whatever, right? Which is what.
That's another thing that we might be able to pull that lever is that sometimes we have people who reserve more than one class in a day, but we also have people that do a class and then they also reserve an open gym spot, or they might take 2 classes maybe. This is before. Now we have one programming track at our gym, which is we could talk about that. That's been a great change for us. But anyways, I could talk about this stuff all day.
I know, of course. But okay, so bringing it back to this whole thing with Don, so let me ask you this: what you said, your big thing in your podcast with Gabe was that, hey, listen, we really like the direction they're going, where they're going, and what they're looking to do with the affiliates and streamline the affiliate process and helping the affiliates out is something where we believe in. And obviously, when you launched your license model, that's kind of what you were doing. You're like, I believe I can help these gym owners. We have great processes, this great standard operating procedures, all these things that we do here at NCFit. If another gym wants to wear our badge, we will provide them all the business support with this stuff legally that we can with a license model kind of scenario. So what is it that Don's talked to you about? And I don't know if he's put out he hasn't made his address or anything publicly yet. I don't think what his game plan is for the rest, his future going forward for CrossFit. I think that's coming up at some point here in the future.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just say without obviously, letting anything out of the bag before he gets to make his official announcement, what do you see for him? What is it that he's talked to you about that makes you feel so confident in this new, focus on the affiliates? I know you've talked with Maliello and a couple other guys, but.
Yeah. So just real quick on the affiliate, on the license model, it's actually been good. So when we decided to make this decision, I personally felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders because I had been thinking about this for a long time. I've been talking to Don, talking to Gary Gaines, talking to other people. I started feeling better and better and better and better. And, obviously there's still growth to be had and there's still like work to be done. But where I'm at is I went and I talked to each licensed partner. I explained the why. and they're on board, which is exciting because I was clearly able to explain to them, who do we want to be in the future? We're not going to be functional fitness. We're not going to be this. We're not going to try and compete in this ecosystem. We are going to be the world's best CrossFit gyms. That's it. And we're going to apply it to this demographic, and we're going to narrow our focus. And I'm super excited about that. But anyways, back to Don. He's coming to where I'm at right now in like, I don't know, 6 hours. And we're going to record a podcast on exactly what
Awesome.
I was under the impression that he was going to make a statement to the community about a week ago. He hasn't. I know he's been traveling a lot. I was under the impression he was going to make something mid-January, but it sounds like maybe that's going to be pushed out. I will talk to him more about this. But at the highest level, I think it's their openness to look at it more as a business and not as a hobby, meaning like for the affiliate owners, for the growth, like to look at it like we need the best product on the floor at the affiliate level because it's good for the overall ecosystem. We need to get CrossFit in the eyes of more people. If some business opportunity comes up that gets CrossFit in front of more eyes, that's where we need to go. And instead of being this idea where like growth is bad or we're not going to take this deal because it's not in alignment with, he wants more people doing CrossFit, and he wants the affiliates to raise the bar. And those are things that I completely align with.
And I mean, from a pure business perspective, the only ARR they have, annual recurring revenue, is the affiliate license agreement. There is no recurring model for them outside of that. The seminars are one and done. They're paid in fulls, right? They're occasional. They have performance-based KPIs. They did this one sold out, this one didn't, right? They're subject to things like that. Those are also the highest expense. The nice thing with the affiliate license thing is, for the most part, now, previously it was, I think, if we looked at the operating expense of the affiliate licensing business model, it didn't really have a lot of expense because they weren't reinvesting any real money into that. It was going to whatever media and games. Now, hopefully they'll see that. A company as big as CrossFit, do you have any fears? Because you and me have discussed the license and franchise thing at scale. This company's too big. If they even they shed a little bit too much on one side of business, do it this way, it's got to be this, whatever, someone's going to call on them. Like someone's going to whistle blow, and they're going to get looked at as, are you trying to be more of a franchise? Or are you a license?
Oh, I mean, that's a good perspective. I hadn't thought about it through that lens, right? Like, I think that first off, I don't think they're going to skirt the franchise lines in terms of like, you have to do it this way. I think they're going to put out tools and resources, and the goal is to get people inspired to use them. I'll give you an example. After we reaffiliated, I was able to go on the CrossFit website and download their affiliate playbook. And I should show it to you sometime. It's robust, man. And even the fact that they have an affiliate playbook, shout out to my buddy JP for leading the charge on that, is a huge step in the right direction. I mean, massive. For years, we would talk about these things like, hey, let's just create some baseline thoughts on like how to look for a new space, that you should probably have an AD, like all these things. And now they have this systemized procedures on before you take, the way they structure it, I think, is that before you affiliate, you could pay $500 for this kit. And then if you decide to affiliate, you could then use that $500 towards your license fee. And it goes all steps from all the nuts and bolts. And I wish that they had something like that earlier on, because I think it would have helped people who are passionate about CrossFit recognize that there's a business side to it too. So that's an example of something they've done to invest in the affiliates that I think is just like a stepping stone towards everything else they're going to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And and that's the thing, is that's kind of where it's going to start, and it'll stay there, but it kind of is where it has to end. Right. They can't, like, it's not like they can require, it's like, again, you can't go too far. And trust me, I tried finding every way in and around with my licensing model. How can I provide business support without it being something? Because, okay, can we get on phone calls with them? Yes, we can, but I can't make them get on the phone call. So it's going to be like hey, at every Wednesday at this time, we're having an affiliate call with an affiliate mentor who's going to answer business questions for you guys. Yep. And I think you and me both know this because you went real big with your license model in the beginning. You had a lot of people sign up and join and all that. And I bet you probably saw that there was a solid number of underperformers within the license model, even with all the tools you've had. And you've shown me all the tools that you guys provide. you can take a horse to water, but can't make him drink or whatever the hell that's called. Like,
Yep.
so, but you're right. I like this where they're going with it. I think the hardest part of any license model, and again, you look at like the issues.
Especially at 10,000. I mean, how do you do that at 10,000, right?
100% is, hey, listen, you're going to have 20% underperform, 60% do average, 20% do above average. And that's probably how it's going to shake out. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. Not all the baby turtles make it back. And that's, some people are going to fall off. Like you said, like their death in business is honestly, it's kind of necessary. People do need to fail. But I'm very excited for this, for them, because I believe, as someone who's been so involved in individual conversations with CrossFit clients and stuff like that, is essentially like, this is their only annual recurring revenue stream. The games loses money, like whatever. Why wouldn't you put more eggs in this basket? And the other thing too is, I feel like Glassman, he could stand on a stage and argue against anybody in the world to defend the methodology. I don't think he had at all that confidence on the business side. He was a horrible businessman, admittingly. And I've had plenty of.
He really can't. Yeah, because that wasn't his intention starting out, right?
No, it wasn't.
I mean, giving Greg credit where credit's due. First off, I think he created a methodology that's changed the landscape of fitness. But like, he was who he was, and he was unapologetic about it. Like, I would talk to him about business for years, and he was always consistent. And eventually, we didn't see eye to eye, but he was consistent, right? He was always the way he was. He believed the cream would rise to the top. He was very he did not want to provide any resources or tools, really, and he wanted to allow people to figure it out. And in his regard, like, again, I have a lot of respect for what he built and the fact that he stayed consistent with his messaging. I just think that now is a time when it's grown to the scale that it has. We have to look and recognize what levers do we have to pull from the affiliate community to raise the bar. And we might take a step back for a year or two to take 10 steps forward in the future, meaning, and this is my words, not HQ, like, what levers we have? Well, you could make it more difficult to become a licensee, right? You could make it more expensive. You could increase the type of certifications that maybe someone's required to have. You could require certain branding guidelines of how the brand is used. There's a bunch of different ways they could do this. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, maybe over the next year or two, you might see that the affiliates that are hanging on, is that good for the overall ecosystem? Is something we have to ask. Like, I was at Wadapalooza. I talked to many gym owners. Several of them came to me and said the reason why they took over their gym was because they wanted the community to stay going. But they have other full-time jobs. They don't consider themselves gym owners, and they don't have the same focus and attention because they're full-time doctors or whatever, right? There's something else. And is that going to be good long-term for the ecosystem of the affiliate? Or would it be better off saying, hey, let's increase the license fee. Let's require certain things so that that person who thinks about doing it more as a hobby thinks twice, because it actually long-term might be better for them and it's better for the overall CrossFit ecosystem. I just think these conversations have to be had. And I think it's important.
I agree. If I were to think, if I'm talking with Don and I'm like, a few ideas, right? Like, one is, if you want this thing to do better, the hobbyist gym owner, like, there should be an option. Like, if you want to create a 501c3 type gym program for community, we have a product for that here at CrossFit. But having almost like a business acumen screening, because that's the nice thing with a license. You don't have to give it to anybody. It's not pay to play. You have to be selected. Right now, it's an open door model. Essentially, once you've come up with your name, you've passed the test. Like, essentially, you got to just have a name no one else has taken, and you're going to get one. But like, having a basic business acumen. So when someone's like, I really want to do this, but I'm a full-time I'm a full-time whatever. But I really enjoy the community. That's like someone like, I think babies are really cute and squishy, but I don't really like cleaning up shit and waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning. Like, well, then you probably shouldn't have a baby. If you just like the fun part of it, you're actually talking about a business, and you're going to ask someone to work for you to keep that business going. And that person's going to need you to treat it like a business, not because you have a full-time career W-2 and this is just a side thing for you. This is also this could potentially be someone's full thing. So I think maybe having higher selection, like not allowing everybody that has an L1 to open one up. And that's not franchise or license. I mean, anybody can do. I mean, that's something they fully can do within the laws of licensing.
Yeah. And they have to decide what I do know is that they're going to have to take a hard look and recognize, you're right. The affiliate is a substantial revenue stream for CrossFit, right? You're talking many millions of dollars, right? You have that, you have training and certifications, right? Which I think is another good revenue stream. I'm sure got hit pretty hard through COVID, of course. Then you have the games, but really at the end of the day, the largest revenue stream they have by far is the affiliates. And, I think that their mindset of we need to help the affiliates financially is like really reassuring for me. Because like, for example, if I say to you, what's the average take home income of an Orange Theory, owner or F45 or whatever, you could probably go find that data online, whether it's the owner, the trainer, et cetera. But if you try to ask that same question from a CrossFit perspective, now there might be some data you don't even want to see because it might not be favorable. But the fact that we don't have the data is an issue because if we can't build on something if we don't have the data. So the fact that they're looking for the data is really important to me because we have to create a baseline. I have an idea of what the average CrossFit gym makes. I have an idea of what the owner makes, but we need to create that baseline so we could then create systems and procedures to see if we can create that baseline and go up a few percent over the next year or two. So you can go to someone who says, hey, I'm a business owner. I'm a business guy. I love fitness. I'm looking at deciding between what business model do I want to pursue, F45, Orange Theory, or CrossFit. And you want our business model to be as favorable as the passion people have for the life-changing results. If we could bridge those two together, CrossFit's winning, period. Because like a guy like me, I reaffiliated because I it's a part of my fabric of my DNA. It's a part of who I am. And it hasn't sat right with me for years. And I'm grateful to be able to say that I'm an affiliate now. And how great would it be if a year or two from now, I'm saying, hey, it's a fabric of my DNA, et cetera. And I also see substantial business case because of X, Y, Z, and I think we're going to get there.
Going back to what you were just saying there with if we combine the passion with some strong business sense and that whole thing with everybody and looking at like F45 and all this other stuff, it's tough in this world, like is collectively the companies that have been spun off from CrossFit, Wodify, Push Press, Zen Planner, they all have all their success to thank CrossFit. Mm-hmm. So can you get those companies to collectively submit and provide? They all put out their little annual like reports and all that kind of stuff. And I've got problems with those reports with user error and how things are entered. And some of the numbers I don't think always, but I mean, yeah, I think can CrossFit start making a concerted effort either in user owner submissions, like affiliate submissions, like, again, they can't require it, but like, hey guys, we have a document, like it's a Google Doc kind of thing. You put your name, email, your phone, or whatever, your affiliate, your location, and how much did you do? And let's just start harvesting organically like they used to do with whiteboard data, right? Bunch of whiteboard data pieces on the whiteboard. Let's run with it. And I am like, I've seen obviously what the guys with Fern and Ackerman have been doing with best hour of their day. And I'm a huge fan of that, of people in CrossFit seats, because those guys have CrossFit seats at the table of the, they're well respected in that world, giving business advice out. And I'm all for it. Again, the more, the better.
The more, the better. I do think they're going after the data though. So my understanding is they are having good discussions with member management platforms to gather data, and how they're doing that and what they're doing that from a legal perspective, that's up to them, right? But the fact that they're even going after the data is a huge step in the right direction. Like the fact that we're even talking about this is what makes me excited, because these conversations would have never have happened 4 years ago, ever. And the fact that we're saying, hey, we need to raise the bar. We need, because the thing about it is when you start talking, we need to break down this idea that talking about money in CrossFit is a bad thing. Because if you start talking about money, you start talking about growth, now all of a sudden we can do so many great things. If the owner is generating 6-figure plus salary, now all of a sudden he could pay his coaches better. If he could pay his coaches better, the product on the floor is gonna be better. The product on the floor is gonna be better. His revenue is gonna be better. And then it's gonna raise the entire ecosystem of CrossFit gyms. So it's not a bad thing to be making money because you can compensate your team better. Otherwise, you just have people that come in, teach a class, and they look at it more as a hobby. We need people to start looking at this more as a job or a career trajectory,
CrossFit created, and I think I'm going to say this, I'm just pulling this out of my ass now, but I think CrossFit created the most amount of fitness-based jobs, but they also created but they did not create the most amount of fitness-based careers, like places for them to go to have a sustainable career. The most amount of trainers have come out of since CrossFit started doing certs. We have more trainers, people educated to help people move better than we've ever had. But there's still a very limited number of places for them to have actual careers. Yeah. W-2 benefits. I could have a kid and get a mortgage on it. So we just filled the marketplace with a ton of trainers who eventually the information becomes stuff I learned back in the day when I was kind of coaching or whatever, but I had to go get a real job. That's, you know, he hears this so often. Trainers that are coaches part-time, they want to be full-time, but the owner doesn't have the business center to do that for them. So he's like, I got to go get a real job. And it's, I think that's if they start looking at it like, okay, we are making more trainers and fitness educated and movement educated people out there, but we can't put them in all these affiliates. We can't, there's way too much of this and not enough of this.
Yeah. They can't support the growth. And yeah, I mean, look, that's something we have to discuss. And, you know, where I feel really good about this, Stu, is like, I had a heart to heart with myself, right? I don't know if I was in the cold plunge or what the hell, probably not the cold plunge. That would be even possible. But like, I was just sitting there. I was like, no matter what podcast I'm on, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always connected to CrossFit, always. And I always will be, you know, I'm a legend in the sport, they say, whatever. Right. And I believe that there's a brand perception it's intimidating, et cetera, et cetera. I want to be a part of solving that issue. I want to be a part of people seeing what I see every day in our gym, right? Life-changing results, connections at a level that hasn't been seen before. I want to be a part to show more people about that and not on the sidelines anymore. And that's where I'm at just personally. And it took me a long time to get there because I got away from that. And it took me a long time to get away from that because of some outside factors, right? But I'm ready and I'm like in a spot where I want to contribute to the success of CrossFit big time. And so even talking about like the affiliates, and they're open to it, like Austin and others, they're open to these ideas now, which is like, I really think we're catching CrossFit at a great time from an affiliate model perspective, personally. I mean, look at the growth it's had. And it's like everything that they've tried to do to ruin, like, look at all the things that they've tried to do. People, like, everything that you could think of to like break down a business has happened. And yet it's still here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
that's again, because the product is phenomenal. Like the methodology is second to none, in my opinion. What they've done for the fitness industry is general. And again, I believe CrossFit's almost even at a point where it's going to become one of two things. It's a genre like bodybuilding. Nobody owns bodybuilding, or it's a brand. I mean, so much now, again, so like the entire world is just looking at any kind of burpee, kettlebell, box jump rower, CrossFit. Like it's become a genre for like HIIT, right? Yeah. It's that's how big it is. I think CrossFit can bring it back in to be in its own brand, just like there's pizza, but then there's deep dish, East Coast, West Coast, whatever. I have a heart, like, I'm not, very, very recently, I've been like very blacklisted. I've been invited to speak at a CrossFit affiliate event as recent as last year. And I was literally buying my ticket and I paid my own way. They're not paying me or anything. I just was super excited to come to do the gym, talk about real estate stuff and this one little niche.
Yeah.
And then absolutely not. He's blacklisted. He de-affiliated from CrossFit. He's said some things on a podcast. I never want to see him on a list of a speaker at an event ever again. It's like, okay, fair enough. I get it. However, as this grows and you have guys like Don now who are coming in and going to bring up ideas, like my idea of PT first might not be so crazy anymore. Like, or just like gyms having different ideas. I feel like previously in the CrossFit world, again, there's no CrossFit HQ giving business advice. There's guys like you and me and JP and Best Hour of their Day and Cooper and people just giving out advice. And if you like that flavor, you take that flavor and you try it at your gym. Their flavor of their, like the business ideas that they're going to have to present, it can't just be this one way. Again, I think that's going to get them in trouble with the franchise thing. They're going to have to present multiple different ways to run this thing. And it worked for a gym in Vancouver. Man, we haven't really seen that, but I guess we got to share it with everybody. But now it's not like, remember how like when on-ramps, like if you didn't do an on-ramp, you were an idiot. Like if you didn't do an on-ramp on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. and that's what people signed up for, you were an idiot. And now it's like, well, that's actually really inconvenient for everybody to have to show up. So nobody does that anymore. I'm just curious to see how quickly the brain trust, whoever's gonna be leading the business advice at that company, how are they willing to get on the phone and have conversations with people who are outside of their realm, who maybe were blacklisted, whether it's the Starettes or the Ripitos or the Stews or the whoever?
Yeah, no, I think that's gone. Meaning the formal way of doing things, where if you disagree, if you know, and you're kind of like isolated, right? I think that's gone now. I think that culturally, the first thing that I think Don recognized, and again, these are my words, is that he went in there and it's like there's dissension, right? There's different things going on. They're working in silos. And this idea that if you have a different thought or maybe whatever, that you're just like, you're done. Like never again we talk about you. That culturally is going away. Obviously, there's still going to be some like remnants of that, and it's going to take some time to get through it. But that's not the best way to create growth for CrossFit, because there are different ideas that come out of different platforms, and we need to be able to hear those. So I would say to you, my understanding, at least from my perspective, is that they are very much so more open to that than they used to be. Meaning there is no more of this like you're in or you're out. And that was the way it was. Now it's like you might have a difference of opinion. You might bash CrossFit, whatever, but that doesn't mean that we're going to like isolate you for the rest of your life. That's my take on it. And it's going to take some time for guys like you and others, and even me, to see that in action instead of just talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm as optimistic of it because again, I owe everything to even me taking entrepreneurship and my love of fitness in the same direction. I owe it all to CrossFit. That was, in college. That's when I walked out on a master's program for exercise phys. I didn't show up. I ate the money I was supposed to, I paid for my deposit for room and board, and I never even showed up. And I was like, because I decided I was going to do this entrepreneurial thing. And I owe 100% of that to CrossFit. And then it just like over time, like you said, I'm like very excited for it. And I'm the guy that believes that I don't believe CrossFit needs to reposition themselves on a few things and a shakeup like what they've had. And this thing takes forever. When people are like, oh, it's been 2 years since Glassman, I'm like, bro, it's the Titanic. You want to turn a Titanic? Homie, that's going to take a minute. They can't make moves like that quickly. It's going to take years for you to look back on and be like, this Don regime has been here now for 5 years, and this is a much different ecosystem now. But it took that many years since Glassman was removed and the changes started. And it's just the nature of being a huge company.
It'll continue to take time. I mean, look, do I think that everything is perfect with CrossFit? No. Is everything perfect here? No. I mean, there's always stuff that could be better. But what I do care about the most is that Don's open to he knows that for CrossFit to be successful, big change needs to occur. And he's willing, I believe he's willing to make those changes, right? I'm excited to talk to him more about this today. Our first conversation before he took the CEO role was probably about a month before, maybe 2 months before he accepted the job. And I just laid it out. I mean, I talked to him for a while. I just explained to him like what I would do if I was a CEO of CrossFit. This is what I would do. And these are the things I've seen. And I think that his openness, he's taken, a decent amount of time. I think that he definitely owes the community in the very near future. I told him this, like, what is his vision for the future? Because what has never been said to the community of CrossFit ever is like, where are we going? What's our 5-year? What's our 10-year plan? What is the goal? Are we trying to explore the sport of fitness? Are we trying to open more affiliates? Are we trying to get more people to be doing CrossFit? And so I think that him coming to the table and explaining to the community, this is where we're going, I think people will just rally behind him, and it'll be really successful.
How do you look at, you have been able to do things as an affiliate, as a CrossFit affiliate, and then as a non-CrossFit affiliate that 99.9% of affiliates have not been able to do. And this is break into Eastern markets, other countries, break into the hospitality industry, apps, like not push press giving me a really nice customized app, but like my own fucking app. And then I had to do it over a second time with a different developer. And you are light years ahead of that, of the average affiliate from those perspectives. Do you believe Donna's maybe going to be looking at you? Because again, I mean, even if you go to, myself and Two Brain and whatever, there's not a lot of people who have actually walked that like you have and provide solutions. Like, again, like you look at an NCFit app, damn, that's really good. Jace, who are those developers? Well, is there a way for other gyms to have their own, or should they just have a CrossFit one? Which again, licensed franchise, it gets dicey there. But like, of all these things, everyone's always had you on podcasts and asked you questions about how do you get corporate wellness, blah, blah. Are you a one of one? Is this even realistic for the other brands, the other affiliates to look at? Or do you think Don is going to try to tap you for like, hey, Jace, help me figure out these like top 1% things that the top, like we said, there's gonna be a bottom 20%, a middle 60, and a top 20 that the top 20 can maybe pursue?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to start with the brick and mortar affiliate. That's where we have to start. If someone want to talk to me about corporate wellness, apps, this and that, I'd be like, bro, like you
Sure.
got to get your
Just get
gym.
your basic shit figured out. Right.
You got to
Let's
be.
say we're talking about that top 20%, the gyms that are doing well, doing over $1 million a year in that are doing well.
Well,
They have their home taken care of.
I personally think that gyms that do $1 million a year in revenue probably represent the 1% of 1% of affiliates in the United States. And I don't know if necessarily $1 million a year in revenue is going to be the guiding factor, because I think that there's some factors that play into that. Like, for example, in our market, it's much easier in the Bay Area to do $1 million in revenue than maybe it would be in central US somewhere,
sure.
where
100%, yeah.
But we need to create a baseline of like take-home income, revenue, et cetera. But once those are achieved, I think that, the gym owner has to take a hard look at themselves and say, what are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? So for example, our apps, I mean, dude, I think at this point we probably spent, I don't know, 700 grand, maybe more on apps. Is that even worth it for a gym owner? Right now, obviously we just launched a new app. I think it's incredible for the collective. And we also have an end user app. But is that even something the gym owner wants? I think they need to think about it. Like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to make 6 figures? Am I trying to provide 6 figures for a variety of people and then go from there? And that's the kind of stuff that I want to help CrossFit with. Is I'd like to go speak and discuss and inspire, but not tell. Meaning, like, I don't think the way to talk to gym owners, people who got into CrossFit liked the idea they can kind of run it the way they wanted to. They didn't want to be told exactly how to do it. I don't want to go tell anybody exactly how to do it. I just want to say, hey, look, this is the way that we've done it to do this. If you want to know more, here's the way I like, because I think we got to find a way to get gym owners to be excited and inspired about the business, as excited and inspired as they are about the fitness. If we could do that, dude, we're winning as a community.
I agree. And I know the power of the whiteboard. In a group setting, the power whiteboard, if I see Jason has beaten my score traditionally, I come in excited with ambition every day. Like, maybe today's the day I get to be up there with Jace. I think business owners, again, if there is more of a centralized, again, if like one of my clients in Columbus, Ohio, that does over $1 million a year, if he could look on and see what NCFit's doing annually, and there was like a sharing of that, I mean, like, that would motivate me to get up and be like, fuck, man, I want to get on a call with this upper tier. Because I look in like the license model. One of the things that I always had, we had projectively created was, as you did in different revenue schemes, you have different problems. You all have similar headaches to just become bigger, a lot of more zeros behind them and things like that, but having conversation. So all of our gyms that are doing, $80,000 or $800,000 in ARR versus, whatever it is, they're coming different tiers, and there's like community calls, there's conversations. So you're having similar conversations, because you don't want the gym that just started listening to you talk about corporate wellness, because he does not need to be worried about corporate wellness.
No,
but but if there could be some way, talk with Don, is like, will there be a level of community, kind of like the comment section under CrossFit.com? You get to compare notes or whatever, but doing this for the affiliate owners and breakout calls with people who are doing certain numbers, only because that's going to be a much more concise learning experience hearing from other people.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm going to see Austin tomorrow. Actually, they're doing a West Coast affiliate gathering. I'm going to it. And these are the things that I want to discuss with him. Like, I'm not interested in like the training certifications. Like, you guys got this, like, it's great. Right. But I'm just interested in talking like business like that. And I think that creating different cohorts could make sense, because the problems of a gym just starting, you could also break it down in terms of duration of time, potentially. Like, if you're pre-open, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, because there's different growth also as an owner. Like, when you've been in this 10 years, you're not necessarily having the same problems as someone who just opened. So I do think that we could split it up into different cohorts. And I think that we need to start having like business seminars where it's just business. Like, you're coming here, we're talking business. We're not talking about anything else. And I do think what other thing that might help CrossFit is having a mock affiliate like they did at the games, but doing that at like, for example, having people come to our gym here in Campbell and showing them an example of what it looks like, from the walls to the flooring to whatever. Because if you think about the culture of CrossFit and how it started, Started off in Santa Cruz. I went to the original CrossFit HQ. And the way the original CrossFit HQ looks like, if you watch like that Nasty Girls video on YouTube, that was the original CrossFit, and many other videos, by the way. That was the culture that was then permeated between all the different CrossFits, because that was what they saw. Then they went to their level one. And then when they went to their level one, they went to an affiliate that looked like that, t-shirts hanging from the ceiling, flags on the wall,
monkey see, monkey do. Yeah.
Yeah. My question is for CrossFit, what is the goal? Like, we don't even need to say it. We could just show it. Meaning, like, if you have a mock affiliate at the games that's tight and right, and I'm not saying you can't have flags on the wall, et cetera. I'm just saying it's done right. Like, people walk in like, wow, that is beautiful. Now, all of a sudden, I think that starts to change the reference of like, what is the expectation when I open? So when they're thinking about TIs and build out, instead of just thinking, oh, I'm gonna slap some paint on the wall. My first original gym had graffiti everywhere. Just because that was like kind of like the culture. But if that's the culture you want, that's fine. But is there a way to do it in an elevated sense? And I think when you have these mock affiliates, that'll also help us.
Yeah, no, I 100%. I mean, there's opportunities for crowdfunding for marketing efforts. Again, and one thing that wouldn't violate any franchise stuff, affiliates who choose to throw in $400 a month into a pot, and then there's a national firm that's going to represent and supply everybody with the videos and the marketing support, right? Like, that's client acquisition is probably, we put it up there, number one, that every gym owner has an issue with for the most part. There's plenty of other issues, but client acquisition is probably number one. And when you have as much money compiled in, you can get the attention of really big national marketing firms that can go to town. I mean, Planet Fitness gets the same spot every year. New Year's Eve ball drop. Everybody on New Year's Eve Times Square has the Planet Fitness hats and the streamers. It's always that's where the majority of their marketing fund that every Planet Fitness franchise kicks into goes to have that spot. Now, I'm not saying CrossFit has to have the New York, the Times Square spot, but like, there is power there. I mean, there's power in every.
Remember that time remember at Super Bowl, they had the Reebok commercial? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do. 100%. Cool. So, I mean, there was a lot of like marketing gusto, especially in the Reebok days. I remember they dropped the storage containers, the red ones with the Delta sign, and they did all these videos.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate with owners who want to. And again, you don't have to, but if you maybe want to be a part of the RRG, Risk Retention Group, we have our own marketing fund. And if you commit money to it, this is what you get on the back end throughout the year to help you with your client acquisition efforts. I think a lot of affiliates were always annoyed CrossFit didn't make a big enough splash for them. Now, for $3,000, per year, that's just to use the trademark. Right. Again, I don't think anyone should be getting anything extra. I truly believe $3,000 is still a steal to use a brand name and a methodology and a logo you never created on your own, right? Compared to what a franchise, whatever. But if you want more, it's kind of a la carte. That way it can stay licensed. But you don't have to do this. But if you want to pay extra to be part of the marketing committee or the business group or this revenue streams for CrossFit, but they're also going to have OpEx, they're going to have operating expenses associated with all this. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good that could potentially come from this with some new perspective, like hopefully what Don's going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I mean, he'll be here, like I said, later today. I have a lot of questions for him. I think that.
What are your big questions for him? Like, what are your big, like, the ones that you're like, I'm really curious how he's going to answer this?
Well, I mean, I was going to ask him that one. I just wrote down, like, marketing buy-in. Like, where would you be at? Because here's the thing. If you say, okay, I'm going to do a marketing buy-in, and you're going to ask each affiliate to pay $100 a month for this. First off, I think that the affiliate community will not like that at all. But if you actually thought it was in the best interest of driving people into the gyms, is that something you'd be interested in? I imagine he would think that's too far of a step, but I mean, how are we going to get on the mass scale unless we generate revenue to put towards marketing? Because the affiliation fee, I mean, look, yeah, it's $3,000, but I mean, a lot of those people are in for years. So it's not like you're not doing 3,000 times 10,000. You're doing an average of probably whatever, let's just call it 60 million a year in revenue. So how are you going to take that revenue, disperse it between a staff of 200, full-time people at CrossFit, and still have money left over to go out there and do a marketing budget? So I think the question needs to become, my questions for him are all the things we're talking about. What's a 5-year, what's a 10-year plan? What have you noticed since taking on the last 7 months? What in particular is your number one focus from the affiliate side? How are you going to get the quality up overall? Things of that nature. And then where do the games fall into this? I think that for him, the games are a really big marketing opportunity, a really good driver. I kind of see it a little bit different. I look at it like it could be a 50-50. I think on the one hand, it's exceptional. On the other hand, it could be intimidating for people that turn on the TV and see CrossFit in that light because they can't separate out the fact that there's so many different levels of this game. Would it make sense to ever call that fittest on earth and have the methodology they're doing, because they already have the trademark for fittest on earth. So would it make sense to change the name of that to fittest on earth?
Yeah.
And say these people are training CrossFit to get ready for this? I don't think that's ever going to stick, but questions like that on like the future, I think is what we need to discuss, create a plan, and then let the entire affiliate community know about it for the next, however long.
With the games, it's only good marketing, but it can only be good marketing for one thing. It can't be good marketing for affiliates and the sport. You see, like, that's the one thing where I was like, oh, it's great marketing for CrossFit. I'm like, yeah, no, CrossFit, but which CrossFit are you talking about? The affiliate model, which is GPP for the average person, it's a commercial unit, or a sport, something that could potentially make its way to the Olympics one day, potentially, if it wanted to. I've got a question on sport for you. You've now, the past year, besides all of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, you did the Rogue Invitational, you went down. Did you compete at Wadapalooza or you just hang out?
No, I just hung out.
Just hung out. Okay. I've just stumbled onto something, and it's news. It's news to me because I don't consume a lot of content, but are you familiar with this thing called High Rocks?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The 10 events,
dude.
Yeah.
It's 8 events. But we're going down this rabbit hole. Like, I was like, what is that? Is that like inside of a convention center? This looks like, I saw Spartan has one. So then I went down my rabbit hole on it. And as a business guy, I wanted to talk business with you on this. What is your initial thought when you see this High Rocks thing? Something that obviously is bled out of CrossFit, started in Germany.
Yeah.
What does your business brain do when it sees that?
Well, I mean, when my business brain, first off, something I've talked to Don about, and I think in CrossFit, what they need to do is they need to be more open to identifying a way to license the mark for digital purpose. So let's just talk about that for a quick second. Then we can get to High Rocks. Take HWPO, Proven, Mayhem, us, anybody. You cannot utilize the mark of CrossFit unless it's associated with a brick and mortar location currently. Like, so for example, I could utilize the mark in here, but if I want to do that on our app, I couldn't. And so I think one topic of conversation, I think, the leadership needs to decide is all of these people are going out there and they're preaching their form of fitness underneath the umbrella of Proven 60 or whatever it is, right? Because they can't call it CrossFit the way it's designed. And that goes into events and different things. Like, I was at Wadapalooza and CrossFit had a booth there. But aside from that, there is no mention of CrossFit anywhere. And these people are doing CrossFit. They are competing in CrossFit, but yet there's no CrossFit anywhere. And so the question becomes, like, where does it come from a license perspective on either digital assets, like for these Provens, Mayhems, et cetera, so that when people say what they're saying they're doing CrossFit instead of saying they're doing name the program.
Sure. Yeah. Their own homemade name.
That'll only increase the availability of the term globally, right? Is what we're thinking. And when you think about something like a High Rocks, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you think about something like that, it bled off of CrossFit, but yet there's no mention of it. They basically say that they created on their own, and it's fine, it's whatever. But would CrossFit be interested in talking to them and allowing them to call a duck a duck? Now, I do think from a business perspective, what's unique about them is that they have consistency. You could run it within a similar format. It's like a 1K run, do an event, 8 rounds or whatever it is, right? Yep. And what I think is good about that is that you could streamline judging. You could streamline how to set it up. You could streamline all these things. And I think from a sport perspective, that's important. I know CrossFit's always been about unknown and unknowable, but at some point it becomes very difficult from a management perspective, a judging perspective, events perspective, to always reinvent the wheel. Not to mention, as a spectator, if you're always reinventing the wheel, it's very difficult to wrap your head around the rules of that particular event. I'm at Wadapalooza and I'm sitting there and I'm commentating, and I still had a difficult time to wrap my head around, okay, what are the exact rules here? And maybe a lot of people like that, but maybe there's a world where we streamline some of the events that are available at CrossFit Games so that people can turn on the TV and start to recognize things. It'd be like if football had different rules each week, would it be as popular? I don't know.
Sure. with High Rock, so in me preparing for these, I'm going down to Austin in a couple weeks. I'm going to run the Austin half, and obviously, I told you I was doing the Chicago Marathon. I've got to integrate myself into the running community a bit more, and it's amazing. I looked at High Rocks, and my business brain instantly went, they literally just created a CrossFit, like something cooler, more challenging, which is what I think a lot of people initially, when they see CrossFit, like that looks cool and challenging, and I can get in great shape. But they did it it's specifically for the endurance community. So again, High Rocks, I just had Shane Farmer on the podcast. I was talking with him about this too. Like, he's a big, obviously, endurance guy. He's like, it's a 1K run, and then there's a fitness event, and then a 1K run and a fitness event. And you do that for 8 1K runs and 8 whatever. Hunter McIntyre currently has the world record at High Rocks in under an hour getting this done. So it's 55 minutes, I think, is the world record. But endurance runners, like, what is the number one fitness methodology in the world in every state in the United States? It's running.
Yeah. I mean, dude, look at the marathon, look at 10Ks, look at half marathons. It's crazy.
Your number one, I believe, like, if I could do it all over again, Urban Movement would have put more focus on partnering with local run clubs, because there are people already fitness focused, but that's all they do, because runners have an identity. I am a runner. That's their identity. CrossFitters, always gym owners, want to convert people. Like, oh, he used to come here as a runner, but don't worry, we'll make him a CrossFitter. Like, no, don't make him a CrossFitter. Let him be a runner who uses CrossFit supplementally. And if you could partner with this brewery that has 120 people show up every third Thursday of the month for a run club, and this running shoe and this, our company and whatever. And again, I think like CrossFit Endurance, what McKenzie started, and then it died out, and it what Hinshaw, and like, I think tapping into the running, because it's the most popular fitness methodology in the United States across and the world, you could do so much good there and get all people who are already fitness minded. It's hard to get Fat Sally, who's sitting on the couch, 80 pounds overweight, and is not even, she can't even fathom walking down the block, let alone going to your gym. Like, trying to get her is very difficult. Trying to get a runner who has been hearing from every outside source, you should do some strength training. You should do some strength training. You should do some strength training. He might get your 8 times a month membership at the gym, right? Or again, like I looked at High Rocks, it's the same event. Because why? Because the endurance community, it's always 26.2 miles for a marathon. No matter where you go, it's always 26.2. It's predictable. They can train for it. And it's a different psyche. The more I've been, in kind of immersing myself in this endurance community and talking to these people, I'm just like, your psyche is so much different than the customers I've sold fitness to my entire life. And I think it's such a missed opportunity for gym owners. Like, you need someone who understands endurance, like who can go and like go to a run club and be like, hey, do you guys have anyone to do like a group led warm up for you before the run? I promise you the answer is no. And you go in there with your trainer, and guess what? Just real quick, anyone who's doing, I just need them to fill out this waiver real quick. Right? Like,
and then you get their information. Yeah.
So anyway,
running is very accessible, right? So one of the reasons why it's so popular is because of how accessible it is. I look at, you walk out your door, you're running, period. There's no, you have to go to the gym. There's no equipment required. It's very accessible. It's very like foundational. And obviously it's super effective, I think, from a conditioning perspective. But, you start to talk about IT bands. You start to talk about deficiencies you develop because of your always repeat motor patterns, right? And so I think that blended with CrossFit, I think, is a great combination. Meeting with local run clubs, I think it's not a bad idea, right? We had a badass endurance club here at the gym for years when Hinshaw was here. Man, we used to have like 80, 90 people show up at the track every Tuesday, Thursday. That's awesome. It was so cool. That's something I wish we can get back to, actually.
There's nothing cooler. Fun. Dude, when I go do my track workouts, I never feel more athletic than when I'm running on a track. Like, you just feel like a fucking athlete down there. A football field in between you or wherever you're doing it at. You feel okay running on the road, but there's just something about being on a track where I'm like,
dude,
I don't feel like I'm 37 anymore. I feel like I'm back
in high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, every year I go do Ava's workout on a track. And that's really the only time I go back to, I go to, my son plays football on a track. So I'll walk around the track sometimes, but dude, it's just such good memories for me too. Cause I spent so much time on the track training for the CrossFit Games, because you can start identifying pacing based on where you're at on the track. It's very difficult to do that out on the road as much.
Correct.
Even with a GPS watch, it's tough. On the track, you'd be like, all right, I need to hit this 200 mark at 42 seconds. I need to do this at this. And so it's a lot easier to kind of articulate that. And then once you learn those paces, like, it's pretty funny. I could still go out there on a track and run like a 7-minute pace, an 8-minute pace. I know what a 6-minute pace feels like, just because I spent so much time learning what those paces feel like. It's cool.
I think, going back to CrossFit, the sport, and you and me, I think, right on the same line with this. Like CrossFit, the sport of CrossFit, I think can become very intimidating. But that's because CrossFit, the sport, is only measuring CrossFit. But CrossFit, the methodology, measures everything. Like, why couldn't, like, DecaFit is another brand like High Rocks, but DecaFit has like multiple categories. They have like Deca Strong and Deca Endurance. And like, why couldn't there be a CrossFit Games event that was 2.5 hours long? It looked more like some kind of CrossFit style triathlon, and you could only register, like, your open season and all that was for this one CrossFit endurance event. Why couldn't there be like a CrossFit strongman? I'm talking bring back Rob Orlando, and there's like a strongman CrossFit thing. You know how the Rogue Invitational is essentially like this amazing Ferris wheel of like different fitness like concepts all in one house, but everything there is a component of CrossFit. And we invited them in CrossFit. We invited Bergeron and Bergner and Rob Orlando and all the SMEs. And then we kicked them all out. Could CrossFit have CrossFit Strongman? And every year you can register, go to the CrossFit Games, and on a different part of the campus, there's a strongman style, but essentially it's CrossFit because it's a little varied. It's a little bit different than a metrics, competition we would watch like at 4 a.m. back in the day with like big strongmen, out of Iceland, but I do like, those. Why couldn't CrossFit just, again, like, go back to what you are? You are this, again, CrossFit came out of cross training multiple modalities, and have these different elements. It would lower the level of intimidation because now someone could look at it and be like, oh, what's CrossFit to you? But right now they see the sport and there's only one fucking sport, and it's the WOD sport.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, also pulling that thread though, CrossFit needs to define who they want to apply to. And they can't be everything to everybody, right? They need to figure out who we are. What is our target demographic? If it's the hard charger, that's, whatever. It's just like you would in a brick and mortar, and then define the best way to attract those people. And I think the open is a phenomenal way to attract them. The question becomes, like, as you go into quarterfinals, semifinals, there's been a lot of change in the sport. I think that we need to take a deep breath, get consistency first, figure out like, dude, if you ask the average person in the gym, what's the CrossFit season right now? A lot of people don't know, and so we got to get that first. Yeah. Once that's down, then it's like, okay, how do we pivot this to make it something really special? I think that I'd love to talk to Don today about his thoughts on the CrossFit Games, because the vision of the CrossFit Games is really important. Because I feel bad for Boz, because he's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, you can go out there and you could put together, I thought he did a great job on the programming, but what's the charter of the programming? And then what's the charter of the CrossFit Games? And then is he adhering to that? And if he is, then no one can talk shit. But right now there's no charter. We don't know what the exact rules, and, is it to test for the fittest on earth, or is it to be a showcase to the athletes? And I think that once CrossFit goes out and explains the goals of the CrossFit Games, I think then the programming needs to align with that. And if it's a test for the fittest on earth, okay. If it's to showcase these incredible athletes and make them look like the, incredible people they are, well, that might be a different version, right? Because, like, if you look at the Rogue Invitational, really the goal is not to test the fittest on earth. It's to put together phenomenal events that are entertaining and inspiring, as far as I'm concerned. Those are my words. Like, it's different goals.
Is there, so with you guys now reaffiliating, did you have any licensees? How did that work for you on the license? Did any licensees reach out to you and be like, what the, wait. So what does that mean? Does that mean I need now to reaffiliate, Jason?
Well, of course. I mean, our first order of business is we have to communicate effectively to our partners. They've invested in us. We've invested in them. We've had a great relationship with them. We have 9 licensed partners, and I would say all of them were receptive and understanding of the affiliation. We explained to them that, like, the brand is not changing, the core values, the mission, what we're doing is not changing. We're just narrowing our focus to be the world's best CrossFit gym and not trying to be everything to everybody. And if you want to affiliate as well and utilize the mark, great. If you don't want to utilize the mark, that's fine too. That's up to you. And over the next year, my goal is to earn their trust, to say, hey, I'm utilizing the mark in this way. For example, at our gyms, we have not used CrossFit as a SEO for 7 years. We're going to start doing that. And I want to be able to show on data, hey, we paid this much for our affiliation fee. Look at all these leads that we got because of the use of the word CrossFit near me. So that's what we're doing with them over the next year. It's like, hey, look, if you want to utilize the mark, We have a way for you to be able to do that. If you don't want to utilize the mark, that's fine. We're going to come back to you 6 months from now with our data, but we wanted to let you know this is our why for reaffiliating. And they were very understanding.
The last thing I want to leave everyone with, you talked a lot about, like, this was very personal. Like, again, this has been a very close thing to you. This is as much of the identity and who Jason Kleep is and the things that you have now for your family and what you provided to them. A lot of it comes on the back of you finishing 30 heavy clean and jerks faster than the guy next to you, right? Like in 2008, this opportunity just was in front of you. It wasn't given to you. It was always a carrot on a stick that you had to chase. If you weren't working and chasing it, it was not going to do is, it's not like you were going to make it, but it gave you at least the opportunity to chase that opportunity and do what you've done. You're a self-made man, but going back on not your word, but going back on decisions you made, and especially with a large organization, the following you have, there's a lot of pressure. What advice would you give someone who, even on their scale, is like, I told everybody, this thing, and now I'm changing my mind to this thing? What would you tell them? Like, I know this other thing is the right thing to do, but I just can't get over admitting to everyone I've changed my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, first off, if it's eating at you, you got to just make it happen, because it's going to continue to eat at you. If it doesn't feel right now, it's not going to feel right in a year from now. And recognizing that, like, people change their mind. People change. I change. I've evolved. And if you're not evolving and you're not growing, then what are you doing? Right. And being humble enough to admit that, like, we did the best we could at the time to try and support. We did. And I still think our decision was the best decision we could have made. I wish we never even had to made it. I wish that it was never even put upon us, but I still think we made the best decision we could. And I think right now we're making the best decision we can, for me personally, to feel right about what we're delivering and for the trajectory of our business and the community as a whole. I think we're doing the best we can. And that's all I could say. I mean, look, people are going to hate on either way, right? If you stay unaffiliated, they're going to say, hey, you're doing CrossFit, you're not affiliated. Okay, fair enough. If you reaffiliate, they're going to say, hey, you left at a rough time and now you're back. Like, okay, yeah, fair enough. I have evolved, and this is the reason why we've done it, because leadership has changed, et cetera, et cetera. And all I could do is just do what I think is best for our community, our staff, my family. And that's all I can control. And it feels right to me. And that's it. Like, nothing else matters, right? Like, if someone is on the fence about affiliating or not, and it's been eating at them, right, at their soul, dude, you could affiliate. It doesn't change your business overnight, right? It just means that you're aligning with them and you're saying, hey, I support CrossFit. That's all it did for me. It's not like we're going out and changing our brand. It's not like we're changing who we are. We're simply saying, hey, this is what we're doing here. That's it.
Brother, I appreciate you taking the time and jumping on a quick podcast with me. Congrats. I'm excited for you, man. I'm glad there's a load lifted off you. And yeah, I'm really excited with Don and you guys being close and him seeing what a successful affiliate can obviously do. And I'm sure he's obviously been a connoisseur of other locations and seen that elsewhere. Really hopeful that you're going to be able to throw some of the ideas upwards that I'm sure you tried throwing up in the past that maybe, and got knocked down, that hopefully now will be kind of picked up and looked at with new, fresh eyes and perspective.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So I think, in closing, like, making the decision to reaffiliate, they're difficult decisions because they're so personal and they're deep, but the feedback has been really positive, at least for the people that are affected by it. Partners, members, coaches. We haven't really gone out publicly. I mean, obviously I'm talking to you about this now. I don't think this is like a 30-second social media clip. This is not a hype piece for me. This is a, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this should have been a 20-second pump up piece, but that's not what it is to me, right? It's deeper than that. And that's why we do it on long form like this. So yeah, that's it.
Love it, man. All right, brother. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. Real quick, anyone who has questions for you, maybe some people who had de-affiliated and now they've maybe got some questions that I was not intuitive enough to ask, how can they reach you?
Probably the best bet. I mean, if you're a gym owner and you haven't checked out the NCFit Collective, I do think we're putting out the best session plans programming app on the planet. Definitely check that out. We use it here in our gyms. But I think probably emailing collective@nc.fit. or hitting me up on Instagram, shooting me a DM at Jason Kleepa. Those are great options for you.
Awesome, Bob. Thank you very much, man. I'll be excited to see this podcast you got with Don. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.